Yes, welcome back. This is A RAP CRITIC. It's your boy Malik 16, founding creator of Plays and Crates. And no, not the dark-skinned Drake. And no, I didn't go to St. Albans and St. John's, but shout out to everybody who represents the borough of Queens, which is my favorite borough in New York. Even though it's Harlem all day over here. But yes, you have come to the right place. This is our very first album review by request and our very first album review by a repeat artist. So this is an artist who's already got an album that we reviewed prior last year, which is the reason why we're doing this by request episode. And with no further ado, the album that we're talking about is Born Sinner by J.Cole. So shout out to you, Devon Scurry or Devin Scurry, correct me in the comments. And this is category 2 where we go over the rap performance on said album. Let's get into it. If you have not already, take this moment now to like and subscribe. Now, dimension 1 in this category is going to be personality and charisma. This is where it gets a little wonky because it has been argued, just as it's been debated whether or not J. Cole had true star power or star quality on these first 2 albums. The question mark was out there. There's also been this debate on whether J. Cole is just boring or bland and lacks personality and seems to overcompensate with other rap antics. For instance, on this album, there's a lot of name dropping from the very first intro track all throughout, right? Cole teeters in a lane often where he drops names, and I don't know if that's something that's gonna leave, that's become his calling card over time, and it doesn't seem like it's in a clout chasing way, as other rappers have been accused of, like The Game, but it also sounds like a way to keep you awake and alert and listening. If we were to say anything, you'd have to say his brand is honesty. He thrives and kind of builds his career off of this idea that I am the honest guy. I'm gonna tell you my honest thoughts. I'm gonna tell you the thoughts I had on this past scenario that I'm sharing with you, what was running through my mind, the sliding doors effect of what I wanted to do versus what I did, what I thought about doing. That is his brand, and a lot of people find that compelling because J. Cole speaks about a lot of relatable incidents with relatable feelings, and I think that's where you get the most personality. On this album, he's still doing that thing where he relies on some of that Kanye-inspired raspiness when he wants to put more emphasis on things. Again, all these seem like tactics to keep you alert and make sure listener check-ins. Like if I was doing a live show, this is where I would like get some more audience participation or maybe switch the beat to keep you into it. So, if you all can think of other elements that make you feel like J. Cole is charismatic. I know he talks in between some pieces. He talks on a lot of tracks. Sometimes his talking it adds value to the song. Sometimes it's like, okay, song could have ended, bro. But something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats, the personality and charisma, which takes us to dimension 2, suspension of disbelief versus believability. How much do you believe J. Cole on this album? And so there's no suspension of disbelief because J. Cole fights the popular archetypes in hip hop constantly. That's kind of what he spent the first years of his career doing, letting you know, I'm not this, but always with a caveat, like, hey, I'm not this, but I will, but don't, always. A lot of his lines on his album are gonna float in that stratosphere of, I'm not this, but I will do that. And so, having that in mind, you also understand that Cole is speaking as Jermaine Cole. He references his real life a lot. He references his brother. He references his mother, a theme that's continued from his mixtape days. His desires to still get his mama house. By this album, this was still a goal. And then high school memories, lots of flashback stories here, a lot of anecdotal pieces of his regular life and now his celebrity life, something that, you know, he wasn't able to talk so much on the first album. So he has lines like, man, hope I don't run into you at the Oscars. He can say that now because it's like, oh yeah, there's a chance that J.Cole might be at the Oscars around this time. Either invited by somebody who had a little bit more of a pull in the area that he's connected to, or just cause people get invited to the Oscars. And, you know, he makes it clear this is a Jermaine Cole project. There is no, I'm going into a character like, you know, on later albums we get, you know, this Kill Edward character or, you know, these other characters that he assumes. Here, it's all him, and the question is, do you believe him? Is he saying digestible things that you can see happening based on the way he describes them? He talks about being biracial, he talks about being poor, he talks about going to college, he talks about grinding to get in the industry, he talks about being rich now and having groupies, he talks about, you know, being in a relationship and struggling to remain faithful, he talks about him in comparison to other guys and other rappers. So something to consider on a scale of 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to dimension 3, the delivery. Okay. Part of this projected confidence on this album is Cole. You know, I mentioned he does the raspy Kanye-inspired thing when he wants to make a point. Something he winds up leaving behind in later albums. But here, this is still a part of his style. And, you know, he also goes into lots of sing-songy cadences, but at this point in his career, J. Cole's sing-songy repertoire is very limited. He has about 4 go-to melodies that carry over really from the first album. I mean, he kind of, you know, does this thing, and this is another hotly debated J. Cole quality. If you're going to go into J. Cole projects, you know that he's going to do melodic or sing-songy stuff, but some people love it, some people hate it, because unlike other rappers who delve into this territory of marrying, you know, harmonizing, vocalizing with rapping, J. Cole has never been touted as somebody who's got a voice, right? He does a lot of things that sound like things we do in the shower when we're making up melodies, or things we do before we write a song, things songwriters do before they actually put the song together. There's a lot of and there's a trying aspect to the way Cole sings on his projects, especially in these early days. I think in more recent albums, he seems to have found his sweet spot. He's found his groove for the notes and the melodies that he picks up on. Here, he's trying, you know, and he relies on it very heavily. A lot of the hooks on here are sung hooks, and there's a lot of borrowing, all right? But we'll get into that. Now, as far as the rap voice that he uses and how he uses it, I think, again, if you're a fan of J. Cole and you're really undeniably into what he puts out, part of what's appreciated is that Cole's talking voice and his rapping voice don't differ dramatically. He pushes when he wants to, but for the most part, he raps like he talks, and that adds to that honesty branding that he has going on. He's like, look, I'm speaking from me. This is me, I'm just gonna speak to you. He does a lot of, and when I rap, when I talk to you, there's a lot of sarcastic curling in his word patterns, in his intonation. So, you know, he really wants you to get it. You know, Cole laughs at his own lines sometimes, and that's become a calling card over the years. You'll see that throughout this album. And yeah, those are kind of the defining features of the way his rhymes are delivered here. There's, you know, sarcastic curling. There's a lot of reliance on this humming, sung kind of limited repertoire of like 4 or 5 melodies he has going on, and then there's the Kanye-inspired rasp when he really wants to sound like he's like pushing a point. Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats, and that takes us to dimension 4, the flow. Now, Cole is playing with flows here. He can speed it up on the up-tempo tracks. Illuminati, he's coming in very aggressively, riding the beat very masterfully. Then there's times where he gets playful and open and maybe a little lazy. There's straightforward moments where he wants you to really hear what he's saying with the lyrics, like on Mo Money. You know, he wants you to hear it. Then there's times where he's doing the double time flow, made famous by, you know, a lot of bouncy rappers in the 90s. So on songs like Ain't That Some Ish or Niggas Know, it's that choppy bouncy flow that was popular in the 90s. But for the most part, what it seems like Cole feels most comfortable with is this straightforward flow, the flow that you hear him use on Crooked Smile, the flow you hear him use on the title track, Born Sinner. You actually get Cole in his most relaxed when there's an emotional buildup within verses. So on songs like Runaway, where he's really getting into this storytelling bag, and it seems like he's matching with the buildup in the beat, it lets loose. It reminds me of, you know, songs like Two-Face from the mixtape days. And then, you know, there's times where he gets whenever he marries with the beat, he's right. So you'll see that same thing on Let Nas Down, but nowhere else do you get this kind of dynamic branching out, but still riding the beat like you get on the song Power Trip. He's doing a lot of this volleying and riding the electric bass line, which is volleying too. So the bass line is going do 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 do, and he's like, back in college when I was getting out of there, when I was living in my mama's room, or even worse, when I was living in my mama's room. And then he goes into the sing-songy, for Pete's sake, can we get it together? Where he's not relying on it, he just slips it in there with the perfect timing to end the verse. But, you know, J.Cole switches the flow multiple times in that song Power Trip. And on top of that, remaining catchy. So not only doing these, you know, not lazy flow patterns, but flow patterns that are still digestible enough for the casual audience for this to be a radio and club single. And with the up-tempo songs, way more syllables, a lot of stop and start. He'll pack a lot of syllables and then stop abruptly to make a sound effect or a laugh at his own line. So, you know, those kind of things. So, something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to dimension 5, the wordplay and the bar intent. All right, there is wordplay. There are homonyms and there are, you know, double entendres. There are lots of slick lines. There's lots of punchlines. There's lots of simile thrown out there. And yeah, I mean, the wordplay is when he's at his best. And when there's parables and these kind of like common sense words to live by in Cole's lines, that you're getting your best. I'll post some up here, you know, they're all over because there's no shortage of it. I mean, Cole is a clever rapper. Some of the lines are hit or miss. Sometimes you'll get a lazy line for every, ooh, let me rewind lines being kind of the sandwich factor. So you get a rewind line, lazy line, rewind line. That's pretty much the Cole formula when it comes to wordplay. Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to dimension 6, and that is talking about the punchlines in particular, or the poetic wisdom and overall quotability of the album. So, you know, this idea with him dropping names, he's using it for punchlines. I mentioned his name dropping doesn't sound like clout chasing all the time, but there are moments where it's like, well, why did you bring this person up, right? So he teeters this line of being like, of using shock rap, because he's not a shock rapper, but when he name drops, he's usually using it in the context that shock rappers usually do. But J. Cole doesn't have that, he doesn't have that character in hip hop. And so it's always dangerous when non-shock rappers float in these waters, because it could be a career killer. It could get you canceled, right? So he says lines on here like,
the whole sequence of Illuminati where he comes out the gate with incendiary lines like the Trinidad James reference where he, takes a shot at him and then uses the line from his one popular song. And then also he does this whole sequence talking about homosexuality, but like trying to make it, again, another meta reference of I'm not homophobic, but you are, even though he does this sequence where he's like fixated on describing homosexual activity. It's just colorful commentary for sure.
The lines that he said about stars burning up, and then he proceeds to mention stars that have famously died by being like burnt to death and charred in accidents, like Aaliyah and Left Eye. And I thought that was a terrible taste. And I'm like, whoa, that was risky, J. Cole, and unnecessary. You could have made that point without, or maybe it's, it could be one or two things where he didn't notice having those references, follow each other was not the best, or maybe, he thought it was a super deep meta, reference within a reference, and it would be smooth to slip it in that way. Either way, risky. He mentions Jay-Z a lot, and this is something that's carrying over from the first album. I hate to compare albums, but on the first album, he mentioned Jay-Z a lot, and it sounded like there's a chip on his shoulder. And then, he talks about Hov a lot on the first song. He mentions Hov on other songs, and it's just real quick references, but it adds up. Cole has wound up being quoted a lot from this album. Ironically, Cole quotes other rappers a lot in other songs, He makes this song called Let Nas Down, where, the song is critiquing a critique or analyzing a critique of his debut single, which he famously uses a hook from a popular Paul Abdul song from the late 80s, early 90s to carry him over a Kanye sample. So, that whole song is interesting. And so he goes into this sampling Fela Kuti by starting off using his bars of a Nas rap. And then he goes into talking how he let Nas down. But as I mentioned, he uses pieces of DOA by Jay-Z to do his Nas song and kind of give a nod to No ID, Jay-Z, and Nas all in the same song. And it's like, you'll hear that all throughout the album. J. Cole keeps saying other people's lines, singing other people's songs, and it's a little unnecessary because Cole is such a gifted wordsmith on his own, and it's such a solid rapper that it always stood out as a projected push or an insecurity thing to reference other people's stuff so much. Jay-Z gets accused of this when it comes to Biggie lines, but at least it's one person that he's referencing and someone that he knew, and there's a method to the madness. We've come to learn over years that Jay-Z was doing it to keep Biggie's publishing young and to keep the memory of his raps alive. Makes sense. Cole seems to be doing it from a fan standpoint. And then he does this whole sequence on the song Niggas Know where he's just doing hella lines from Biggie's Notorious Thugs. It just seems very playful, like very like it was meant to be a throwaway song. Like he's like very mixtape. It gives it a very mixtape feel because it just sounds like why? So many lines from that song he keeps referencing. But anyway, as far as Cole's own words, Cole shines the most with poetic wisdom. Like we mentioned, his punchlines have a lot to do with, shock or name dropping, but the poetic wisdom is a part of that honesty branding. The reason that his albums and his work is compelling because he's giving you words to live by. So you get just everyday man wisdom from Cole and rapper Floss wisdom because he's observing other people in the game and comparing himself to them. And he's talking a lot about relationships and dealings and interactions with women and dropping words to live by there, right? So, quotables. The way he talks about, when he says the line about, you don't understand what it's like to be a nigga when you look in the mirror and all you see is a nigga. Like, that, it's lines like that that are like, whoa. At the end of that song, Runaway, that same song where he's, trying to break down, the generational impact of slavery and the metaphor of running away and being a runaway slave with the similarity of running away from commitment. Lots of jewels within that. Lots of jewels on, almost every song. That is what keeps, Cole's name ringing, is that he hits you in the vein of Andre 3000, this simple philosophy, this everyman wisdom. And some of it may have been a little before its time, before people were ready, or even before Cole himself was ready to understand. He might have been repeating a lot of things we've heard other people say, just in fresh ways. But something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5. Heartbeats, that takes us to dimension 7. Concepts. Now, this is where the fans of the cult following this album will, bring up some stuff that I probably haven't considered. Y'all let me know. That's what this channel is for, so y'all can rank. You might rank this high. I'm trying to think of concepts. Mo Money being a song where he's talking mostly about money. He keeps using the word money. He's talking about the different things people do for money and how to get it. Interesting. Loose concept. Runaway. It's not the most focused song. He goes very much into two different territories trying to tie them together. I don't think it's the tightest tying, but loose concept. Crooked Smile, loose concept. And then, that's how most of the songs on here are. Loose concepts. Not anything that's really like, oh wow, you went around or you went from this angle to do it. You got abstract with it. Everything's pretty straightforward. Forbidden Fruit. I think some of what Cole was trying to get and trying to execute gets lost in the sauce there. So if you all see concepts here where I may not have been able to point it out, please leave in the comments or go to the Rap Ruler, show it what your rank is. And I know some people try to make the point that this is a concept album. I don't know how clearly that was put across. So that's something to consider on the scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats to concepts. Takes us to dimensions 8 and dimension 9, which are the content dimensions. Dimension 8 being the externalized content. How much outside of himself and his inner thoughts and inner monologue and dialogue was Cole sharing his observations on things, right? The environment, politics, the world, the hood, whatever. Now, dimension 9, internalized. How much was Cole actually doing that internal monologue and dialogue, right? So, observation, pure observation. Rich niggas, Mo Money, those seem to be observational. Third person, bird's eye view, scoping. And then she knows he's telling the stories but he's always involved. When it comes to these stories involving women, he's always in the front seat. So that makes it tricky. But Rich Niggas, Mo Money, Miss America, and maybe New York Times, you're getting him talking about things outside of himself. Crooked Smile, he does go into a space where he's talking about a woman without inserting himself. So we'll give Crooked Smile some of that credit. Those are the moments where he's talking about things outside of himself. Again, he circles back and inserts himself in the verse or two here, but there's enough songs where he's talking from an observational outsider standpoint where you feel that there's some semblance of a balance. Now, Cole, with the honesty angle, is mostly known for his inner monologue. I told you, I described those sliding door moments where he's, talking about what he could have done, what he was thinking about, when he was gonna do it, what he felt like doing, what he wished he would have done. Regrets, lots of vulnerability, lots of bragging, all mixed in one. You're getting a lot of feelings on his dealings with women, a lot of feelings on his family stuff, a lot of feelings on his place in the industry. So, fair balance, even though there's more internal content than external content, you're getting it. And songs like Chain and Day are really unique songs because he's talking about his specific place in this transition from a regular dude to this rap star and trying to play the role. And he says something to the effect of, most people fake it till you make it. I did the opposite. I made it, then I faked it. I'm trying to wear this bling and everything just to impress you. And then on another song, he questions it out loud. He's like, am I this or am I that? Am I this or am I that? You won't understand the problems I have until you're in my position. He gets real poignant. And I think both of these are executed at high levels because this is J. Cole's bread and butter. Content is what Cole does. May not be the most conceptual, may not be the most super duper lyrical or the most charismatic, but content is always there. And it's no less there on this album than any other. So something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to the final dimension. Dimension 10, the storytelling. Oh boy. If content is the bread and butter, then storytelling is the jam. Storytelling is J. Cole's jam. He breaks in the story even when it's not a story song. Every song becomes a story. Starting from Land and Snakes, he again starts just bragging and making observations. The final verse, him talking about a woman that, he got with in his younger days as a young man, kicked her out. What comes around goes around kind of narrative. He finds a way to tell a story about a woman on almost every other song on this album. With no exaggeration, I'll just say on every other song, there is a story, and there's not many songs that he doesn't tell in a story format. Not many verses. The Illuminati and other songs where he's just like trying to prove that he can spit is where you get more present tense, just straightforward, bars. But for the most part, he's going to lean on, let me tell you about a story. The other day I was, trouble starts with him talking about visiting a woman in Chicago. And it's just 3 anecdotal stories about women, him and women. She knows, continues that, and so on and so forth. Even when he's talking about his life and his experiences, he's telling the story of those experiences in a story format. You talk about his racist supervisor when he was working at a skating rink, and things like that. Everything is narrative here. So it's storytelling, it's a part of his honesty brand, it's a part of the compelling character, and it's something for you to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That concludes the Category 2 review of this classic album, Born Sinner by J. Cole. By request, shout out to the homie again, Devon Scurry or Devin Scurry. Leave your comments, leave your votes, leave your rankings either here or at theraprouleur.com. We are still building this global hip hop community. So the more the merrier. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Make sure you cop the merch. The merch is only going to grow in that store on theraprouleur.com. So shout out to you if you are a huge supporter. And y'all know what it is. Until next time, F a Rap Critic. They talk about it while I live it. Word to meth.